Please help me welcome Edafe.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, I was just thinking about it, like when those kids were dancing, I was like, I don't understand what the song was saying, but I almost got up to like dance, but I was looking around, nobody was dancing. I was like, let's get the groove going. But thank you so much. You know, I've been thinking about it. We all have biases towards people. And before I came to Idaho, I was very biased towards Idaho, very biased. I remember I told a friend, I'm going to be going to Idaho to speak. And I was like, I hope you make it out alive. I'm not joking. Because I'm a very stubborn person and I wear my heart on my sleeve. But surprisingly, since I've been here, I find it more welcoming than most places I have been to in America. So I want to thank all of you in Boise for creating a very wonderful community that people who come from different places could be themselves. And I wasn't going to talk about being gay because I was like, maybe people will judge me, although I'm openly gay, I can't hide it. So that is gone. Let's begin today. Today I came with a different agenda. And the reason I came with a different agenda is because I want you guys to have just one single message at the end of this event. And if you can get that message, I think I have done my job at this conference. And yeah, that is what I hope to do at the end of today. So let's begin on belonging. You know, belonging can contribute to a meaningful life because being part of a group connotes something bigger, like something that expands beyond the boundaries of our own self. When I entered a plane in New York to come to Idaho, that was the feeling I wanted to have, to belong to a group, to be part of something that expands beyond the boundaries of myself. And I think I've started feeling that since I arrived in this place. But I was watching the news this morning and I saw that UNHCR says that more than 500,000 people have fled in 72 hours from Ukraine. In 2016, 1 in every 157 people on earth was displaced. In 2020, 1 in every 95 people on earth. That means in this room, if we are 350 people, 5 people will be forced to flee their home, and 2 of them, or 2.5 of them, would be children. It's a staggering amount. It's becoming a trend that each and every day people are fleeing their sense of belonging to look for acceptance in some place else they don't know, looking for a sense of security, looking for an opportunity to be part of something that they don't know what the outcome would be when they get there. You know, neuropsychologists have suggested that if humans are bereft of social connection, they could feel pain, just as we are wired to feel pain when we are deprived of our basic need, food, shelter, and clothing. But I know you guys do not come here today to learn about psychology or biology. Many of you did not even come here today to know about my story. I think that we all came here today to learn our own story, the story of America, a place of belonging. So in preparation for my speech, I decided to divide the storytelling into 3 distinctive sections. So I hope you follow along the way. If you are tired, just tell me, pause. But you guys are going to enjoy the ride. First, I'm going to talk about the American story of welcoming people in need. Secondly, I'm going to talk about the American story of building cross-cultural bridges. And lastly, I think we're going to figure out together the America we want to build for people that are going to be coming along the way. When I was younger, about 5 or 6 years old, we had an American flag in our living room, and nobody in my extended family have been to this country. I don't know why. But it was sold to me through storytelling that this is the land of freedom, a beacon of hope to the world. So I perceive America from afar. But when I arrived to the US as a refugee, I have come to a different understanding of what America is. I think many of us think that America is a country of immigrants. That is what we have been told. That America is a place of freedom and a beacon of hope. But I have come to my own conclusion that this is not just a country of immigrants. That America is a place of refuge for millions of people and our families who are looking for a place to call home, to build a life for themselves and for future generations. And we have seen since the onset of the pandemic and the evacuation of Afghans from Kabul, now refugees across the globe, that tomorrow for anyone can be like that of the people we are trying to protect today. If anybody here can tell me what will happen tomorrow, I will pay you a lot of money, because we will all be rich by the next morning, because we can predict what will happen in the market. We would know where to invest our money into. But every single day, uncertainty arises that makes us ask this question: what are we doing to create a safer space for people today, so that if we are victims of those same struggles, other people can be able to do the same for us? And that is the question I haven't had an answer to, because I know that many of us here, we have good hearts. We want to do good. We want to support communities. But how do we effectively support a community when we ourselves, not just refugees, everyday Americans, are victims of trauma? How do you create a sense of belonging for others when you yourself are a victim of trauma? And that is a question I think we should be pondering. That how does our trauma affect the kind of care we seek to provide for others? And when we are not healed, how can you heal others when you yourself need help? We all are going through a very tumultuous time. The pandemic has taken a toll on every single person I know. I lost my dad during the pandemic. I know friends and family who have lost loved ones during the pandemic. Brothers, sisters, nephews, uncles. They couldn't go for holidays, and so much more. So our ability to empathize becomes shortened, because we ourselves need empathy from others. So the American story of welcoming people in need, I would love to illustrate with two people. A retired librarian named Lillian and a former president named Donald. So the story began in 2016 when I arrived at JFK Airport with the expectation of being welcome. Unknown to me that every arriving alien who arrive at the US border have to be detained by immigration. So I asked for protection at JFK Airport. I said my life was in danger in my home country and I want to seek protection. So they took me to a waiting room to wait. While I was waiting in that waiting room, 8 days before the presidential election, I saw Trump on TV. It was I didn't know who Trump was. People say he's a celebrity. Nobody I know Trump. So it was the first time I saw him. It was saying that America is going to build a wall, and we're going to prevent these immigrants from coming into our country to take away from our resources. And I was sitting there the first day I landed in the United States. This child that grew up seeing the US flag in our living room as a beacon of hope, to contrast that with the message I was getting from the soon-to-be president that I am not welcome in this country. Compounded by that message, like 5 minutes after I saw that on TV, I was on handcuffs. My hands shackles on my waist and feet for asking for protection from the US. I was thrown into a bus and driven to a detention center in New Jersey. While I was in New Jersey, the detention center is like a beer house. There's just like a little opening on the roof where sunlight comes in. And we're like 2.5 miles from Newark Liberty Airport. So when the plane flies off and on, we are sleeping with the sound of the plane. It's dark and gloomy, like frightening of like what would be the outcome of my case in America. I came here with no money on my pocket, so I was working in the detention center for $1 a day. Imagine what it means to work for $1 a day. I was cleaning the kitchen, cooking in the kitchen, like cleaning the detention center so I could make phone calls or look for a lawyer or what have you. One day, I was on my shift in the kitchen, like we were preparing meal for lunch. So they called my bed number, like bed 26, you have a visitor. So I was like, I can't have a visitor. My family can't travel from Nigeria to the US. They're like, I have a visitor, an American came to see me. So begrudgingly, I went to the visitation room and I sat in the visitation room. A lady about 71 years old, I'm just guessing her age. She has gray hair. She came with a piece of paper and my name was on the paper. And she called my name Edafe. I was like, yes. She was like, I came to visit you from a group called First Friends of New Jersey and New York. We visit people in detention center. I was like, thank you. I was just telling her about the frustration of how hard it is to get a lawyer. I don't know what will be the outcome of my case. And Trump has just been elected president and they are putting ban on Muslim countries. It's just like difficult. And she said, I wish you knew what it was like before Trump became president. I was like, okay, I don't know. This is what I know. And she was telling me about her own story of when she was in Germany as an exchange student when she was 18. She used to write letter to her mom in America. And she was just telling me about how she fantasized about America as an American outside America. So there our story connects, that my idea of America was how she was in Germany, thinking about America. But she did something that was remarkable. She gave me hope about America. She said, I know that it's very difficult for you right now, but if you get out of this place, there's a community out there in America. And from that day, I had hope that I would be able to get out of this place and meet new set of people in America. About 5 months and 14 days passed, I got my refugee status. I left the detention center. I moved to New York City. I was living on the Upper West Side. One day, I walked to Central Park, and I saw a lady bed washing. It was Lillian, that same lady. She's living in the same zip code with me on the Upper West Side. And we embraced each other, we just laughed. She was like, I told you you would come out. And I'm like, you know, you gave me hope of a possibility of what America is. And it was difficult for me to reckon and contrast the fact that the president was saying I was not welcome, but there was just this one America among the majority of Americans saying that I am welcome. And I think that most of us know and have a Lillian in our life, that our families were welcome to this country, and we want to provide that welcome to others. And welcoming people does not have to be grand. It can be as little as what Lillian did for me, to give me hope that there's a possibility and there's a community out there who would support me and who would welcome me to America. And I think that that alone is the American story of welcoming people in need, saying to others that you are welcome here because I and my family were welcome here. Secondly, I would like to illustrate the American story of building cross-cultural bridges with my work as the director of a homeless shelter. So when I was released from the detention center, surprisingly, not surprisingly, many of you might not know, there was no train card, oh, you were just released, you came from New York, we brought you to New Jersey, we release you by 10 p.m. in the night, take a train station, go to this shelter, you can stay here. There was nothing like that. They just opened the gate and say, go. I was very happy, and I ran out. It was I think it was a full moon. I kissed the floor, I rolled on the ground. I was so excited. But the excitement gradually wear away, and I'm homeless. I didn't have anywhere to go to. That same group, First Friends of New Jersey and New York, a non-profit, they have a toll-free number in the visitation room in the detention center. So I rode my bag to the visitation room and I called the number. So the board president came to pick me up and took me to the YMCA in Newark. While I was staying in the YMCA in Newark, I decided to use the Newark Public Library to go on Facebook. A lady that came from Johns Hopkins University to do a PhD dissertation in the clinic I was working in Nigeria, the Institute of Human Virology. We became friends. So she wrote me on Facebook and said, hey, where are you? I replied the message, I said, I'm in Newark, New Jersey. And she was like, really? I thought you were in Abuja. I said, I have a long story to tell you. And she was like, I finished from Johns Hopkins, my PhD. I got a job at the New York State Department of Health and Human Services. I'm living in Queens, New York. Come and stay with me, rent-free, 3 months in my couch. But I have a dog. Nigerians are not familiar with dogs. I was like, I will stay anywhere with a dog and cat and pigs, anywhere. She was like, come to New York. So I took the train to Queens. When I got to Queens, she pulled up a blow-up mattress in her living room. A dog is close to me. Play in the morning, I wake up, dog is running on my body. I was like, oh my God, what is this? But, it's a culture I'm not familiar with. But she was willing to open her doors for me. And it was left to me to open my heart to something new I am not familiar with. Although, I don't think that many of us are familiar with so many things that we learn to do. But for a Nigerian, dogs are quote unquote not really domesticated to be with people. They're domesticated to protect rich people from thieves or poor people. So I get to be with the dogs and things like that. She goes for a walk and leave the dog with me. And I'm like, I don't know, can I feed this dog or what do I do? This was pretty interesting. But she left a laptop in the living room, Wi-Fi for me. I was looking for a job, and I got a job while I was living with her. I got my own apartment for the first time. I moved out of her place within the 3 months on the dot. And I started living on my own. But I was going around the community I was living in, and I saw that a lot of people have that same experience when they come to America, they get detained. When they are released, they don't have a place to stay. So I founded a shelter, the first shelter in New York City that provided access to housing for refugees who are homeless, asylum seekers who are homeless. Thank you. Why I was running the shelter, it was not just me. It was Americans who gave funding, who volunteered at the shelter, supported other people coming to the shelter. But while I was running the organization, a tragic event happened. One of the shelter guests lost his mother, but as a refugee, he couldn't go back to his home country. So, just as easy as like embrace from your family member when you lost somebody is not there. And this shelter guest was really struggling. So I wanted to do something nice. So I called the shelter volunteers, about 150 of them, and said, let's do a candlelight vigil for this person. So we decided to do a candlelight vigil. A lot of Americans, they wrote a letter of condolences, bought flowers, came together, be with him. And at the end of the ceremony, he said that although I don't have a family here, I really felt like I do have a family here, because all of you made it felt like I have people to cuddle with, to cry with, to like grieve with during this time of distress. Few years later, like 1 year and 2 months, the guy became an EMT in New York City. So I asked him during this graduation, like, why did you choose to be an EMT? And he said that when I came to the US, I didn't know what I was going to do. But when I lost my mother, because of split seconds of an ambulance coming to pick her, I knew that I wanted to be to others what nobody was to my mother during that split seconds that it took for her to lose her life. And he has been working as an EMT all throughout the pandemic. He became a supervisor. He bought his first home in 2020. And I spoke to him the other day. I was asking him, what is it like for you now going through this process and now being here? And he said that, I had doubts about America as a welcoming place because of the news and everything. But if I tell people that I am welcomed to America in this way, I feel guilty because people say that you are lucky that you have those people that help you. But I want that story to be the story of every single person that comes to America, that they have people that will be there for them during their most difficult times. And it doesn't have to be one way. I know so many Americans that the only family they have in New York City are 5-6 refugees. They build cross-cultural bridges between language, food, culture. And that is why I call New York City home. It's that cross-cultural building and activity that take place consistently between Americans and people from different communities. And I think that it kind of makes life really exciting, because as a Nigerian, I really know, I was very ignorant about a lot of things in the world. Very, very ignorant. I grew up religious Christian. I thought that Jews were in the Old Testament, it didn't exist anymore. Coming to New York and seeing a lot of Jews, I even have a Jewish mother. It's kind of like expanding my understanding of the world beyond what I am familiar with, beyond what I'm even comfortable with, beyond what I even want to accept sometimes. Being around those things make it possible. And that is what I want for us as a community. It's very difficult to open your heart to something you are not familiar with. It's one of the hardest things anybody could do. Sometimes you even take courage to do it because you're like, let's just use Islamophobia, for example. Like, what you don't know, you fear. You're like, oh, I don't want to stereotype any community, but like, if you don't know something, you're apprehensive towards it until you get to know it. So for us to be able to build an American society where refugees would belong to our society, we have to be open enough to go across the aisle to welcome people that are different from us. Lastly, I want to talk about the American story we want to build together. And this might really apply to most people that are here, because I think if you work with refugees, if you work with students, or you're a first responder, sometimes you are the first point of contact between someone that just came to this country and building a life in this country. So last year when Afghans were evacuated from Kabul, I was part of Operation Allies Welcome with the Biden administration. So I traveled to Quantico, Fort Lee, Fort McCoy, doing training for US military officers that were welcoming refugees to our communities. One day, I was in Quantico. I and my colleagues just entered into the base. I saw two Afghan kids like running. I saw their face, the way they were running. I thought they were running to their mom. So my colleague was talking to me. My head was just following the two children. They ran to a US military officer. She was fully dressed with guns on her body, and they jumped on top of her body. So I was telling my colleague, I can't do that. Because I grew up in a community where there was war, and the only way the government could settle the dispute was to bring people with guns and tanks. Just seeing a common flag scares me. So I was surprised that those two kids did that. So I told my colleague, I'm just going to ask that lady some question. So I walked up to the military officer. I was like, I find it really interesting that these two kids were comfortable to jump on your body. And she was like, the day they left, they came down from the bus in the base, I welcomed them and they have been my friend, because what it means to wear this uniform is to be of service to others. And who is best to do it if not me? And it really surprised me. My idea of like people wearing military uniforms has always been like disaster. But she gave me a different understanding of what it is to serve the United States. It's to be of service to people that are not even like us, that don't look like us. Sometimes they do, but most times they don't. And thinking about the rewiring of each and every individual that are in this room, that for us to create a sense of belonging for others, we have to be selfless enough to put others on a platform and make them feel like they are supported. Somebody at the shelter told me once, he was like, what are we going to do to feel like we are part of this society? And I said, honestly, I don't know. Because it's not up to us to create a sense of belonging. It's up to them. Because our arms are wide open. You know, the hardest thing for refugees and displaced people is to reach out to the world for warmth and to be replied with emptiness. There's nothing greater than knowing that you contribute to helping someone to pull them up when they are down. For us to create a sense of belonging for displaced people, we have to be willing to contribute to pulling them up. Venus Myers said that biases are the stories we make up of people before we actually get to know them. So for us to change our biases, I do have a bias. We all have bias. For us to change our bias, we have to be willing to listen to the stories of others. Because when we open our heart to listening to others, it is very difficult to harm somebody that you have gotten to know. And it's very easy not just to be sympathetic, but also to be empathetic, to understand that your sympathy would not solve that person's problem. But if you can put yourself in that person's shoe, you will find a solution for that person. I stay away for talking about traumatic things that happened to me, because our consciousness are not awakened when we talk about trauma. We continually hurt ourselves. Our consciousness are awakened when we are willing to listen to somebody and be empathetic to their own struggle, and not just putting ourselves in the shoes, but thinking, if I were in their shoes, what would they have done? And that is your responsibility. To do that thing that you wouldn't have done if you did not know. Now you know. Now we all know that our one simple responsibility to create a sense of belonging is to be willing to put people that are different from us on platforms like this and make them feel that they are supported, that they are part of our community. That is our one simple responsibility, is to be willing enough, to be selfless enough to create this sense of belonging. Naomi Hathaway said that belonging is like stepping on a platform and feeling like you are fully supported. I do feel supported. But what are we willing to do? I came from New York. I don't live in Boise. To make our town, our city, our communities, and our country a more welcoming place. You can create a sense of belonging for someone you don't know, because tomorrow I'm out of Boise. You would never see me again. If you see me, it's by chance. But the people you see every single day in your community, how are you creating a sense of belonging for them? Someone told me, you know that you are the ideal example of what a refugee is. Coming here with grit and resilience, creating an opportunity for your community. And I'm like, what about the Muslim person in your community that wears their hijab to school every morning and doesn't cause any trouble, doesn't found an organization, doesn't have the courage to speak out because they are afraid they will be judged? What about them? Are they not true examples of who refugees are also? There's a distinction between those who are courageous enough to speak up, but the repercussion of speaking up is not being employable. The repercussion of speaking up is being stigmatized, is being stereotyped. You're gay, you're Muslim, you're this, you're a refugee, you're black, you speak an accent. You're everything that is other except the person that is standing right in front of you. Shiny, big objects. We always want the shiny, big objects. The New Yorkers, the people from LA, people who have businesses, people who produce music, people who produce movies, people who are teachers, people who are celebrated in their communities. But we never ask ourselves, those that are in the fringes of society, homeless, those who do not have food to eat, those who do not have clothes to wear, what are we going to do to make sure that they are supported? Because belonging is not accepting someone who understand themselves fully. Belonging is reaching out to those who do not have the opportunity to be on the platform and making sure that they too feel a sense of welcoming. I will end with this so I can answer some questions. There's an African adage that says, a single stick may smoke. I am a single stick, but we're not born. Just listening to that. A single stick may smoke. If you light a matches, it wouldn't burn. For the stick to burn, you have to bring more, and light it. So if I carry a fire into this place, it is left for all of you to take that fire with you and burn it around. Because belonging is the power we hold together, but it begins with you. Thank you.
you get your first job and what did you do for your first job?
That's a good question. So the first job is always the hardest. You know, my very first job, if I tell you, you wouldn't believe it. So when I came to New York, I was looking for a job because I wanted to leave my friend's couch. The very first paycheck I got, you know, in New York, they're non-profits, but there are organizations that are honest to non-profit that raise money for non-profits. It's a very incredible job. So I was on the street. Do you guys know the Statue of Liberty? So on the base of Statue of Liberty, there's a park there where people take the ferry to Staten Island and the Statue of Liberty. Tourists are also there. So you will stand at the base before people take a boat and say, hi, are you interested in supporting the human rights of LGBTQ people? Or are you interested in supporting refugees? You stop people on the streets. If somebody say yes, you enroll them and they donate to IRC, Human Rights Commission. And I did that for 2 days. And that was my first paycheck. Incredible. But the first job I had, full-time job. So I have a master's in nutrition and my bachelor's was in food science and technology. There's a startup that just started like a few months called Edafe. They were looking for their kitchen operation manager. So I took the job and I did it for some time. And the startup is very successful now. It's in New York City. They employ refugees from different parts of the world. And I was responsible for standardizing their recipes. So like, you're a home chef from Syria, you know how to prepare baba ganoush, I will make it standardized. How many measurement of oil, salt, water, then make it into a standard recipe so somebody else can cook it. So each box of meal that goes out goes with a recipe and instruction on how to prepare it. And I did it for a few months, yeah.
I just wanted to thank you for being here and inspiring that all of us. You have no idea how much energy you've given me right now to just go out there and create a sense of belonging. So thank you for that. Thank you for being so incredible. But I wanted to ask you, how did you get out of the detention center?
Oh, yeah. I should have said that. So there was a group called Immigration Equality. They still exist. They provide pro bono legal services to gay and HIV positive people or like trans people, stuff like that. So, you know, I wrote letters to 40 pro bono lawyers all across New Jersey and New York. And Immigration Equality, they did an intake. They have 99.99 success rates. If they take your case, you win your case. So they were pro bono lawyers. They referred me to David Boyce and Plimpton. These are like New York lawyers. They have a building in Fifth Avenue, like very high-class building. 5 of their lawyers represented me. So I went through that process. I got my asylum. And I won my case in the morning and the lawyers left. And the ICE released me in the evening. So that was a very lengthy process, but yeah, that was it. I've always been helped by somebody. It's incredible. And I believe that it's just like I'm lucky, but I don't know. Like, I was helped by First Friend. I was helped by Immigration Equality. When I came out of the detention center, when I got that first job, it was somebody that knows somebody that was talking to me. I was like, oh, I know somebody. And it's easy. I've been doing it now for 4 years. I've been working with refugees. People always think that I don't have ways to help refugees. It's a lie. Maybe you're a banker. There are non-profits that do not know how to do their accounting. You can help them do their accounting. The refugees who need to do their taxes, you can help them do their taxes. It's as simple as like writing a resume can help somebody get their first job, because the resume system in Nigeria, where I come from, is very different from the US. It can be as easy as giving somebody clothes to wear for an interview. In New York City, it can be as easy as $2.75. Do you guys know what is that? Metro card. Someone wants to go for a job interview, got to the train station to swipe, didn't have the Metro card, jumped the turnstile. Police arrested him for invading the turnstile. Didn't go for his job interview, was ticketed $50 because of $2.75. If you drink Starbucks coffee, you know that even the small, not grande, is it's less than $2.75. So I think, sometimes people say, I don't have money, so I don't think I can help a refugee. It doesn't have to be money. It could be that you are doing, I know my first birthday was in my Jewish mom's place. I was released from the detention center in April, and she heard that my birthday is in July, and she organized her family to give me a sense of welcoming. I've done Thanksgiving in one of my friends' place for 5 consecutive Thanksgiving now, or 4 or so. So it's like the first time I visited the Central Park to somebody that took me on a walk to Central Park because I didn't know how to navigate my way. So, you could be providing mental health services for survivors of trauma. You could do anything, walk somebody to Social Security to apply for their Social Security card. It could be anything at all. It could be very helpful for somebody. I remember when I went to Social Security to apply, somebody went with me. I waited 4 hours in Social Security because, Social Security and DMV are the 2 worst places you could go to. I don't know if you know that. You go to the line and get a ticket. There's a line to get a ticket. And you go and sit for a line to get a form. And you go and sit for a line to be called to a line to get a window. And most people, maybe I don't speak English or I don't know how to write in English. Just having somebody there, I don't know how to write, I'm just saying for example. Having somebody there that can explain things to me or talk to somebody and say, oh, this person is new here or stuff like that, it could be very, very helpful. So I think that we undermine the amount of support we could contribute to somebody's life. I think that the US always focus majority on Washington, D.C., but everything has to be local. It has to be very local for it to be successful. Nobody here is going to come to New York and walk me to Central Park, but maybe people are coming to Boise and you might be in a bus station to drive them to their first place or donate a suit to them to attend an interview. So I wouldn't take any other question because I'm tired, but maybe I will take one question if there's a question online. Okay, maybe 2. Yeah, my jaw is breaking.
This will be quick. Really appreciate your talk with us and sharing your story. You said something earlier about trauma and why you don't share it. Could you repeat that for me, please?
Oh, so I used to go to the New York Trauma Survivors of Trauma Center, PSOT, and I attended the program for about 2 years. When you are a survivor of trauma and you share the story about the traumatic experiences you have had, sometimes it triggers those trauma and it's not visible from the outside. But I could be going back from this event if I have told you stories about bad things that happened to me and I smell something and I'm convulsing and I'm collapsing and you guys continue in your nice conference. I'm just saying. But survivors of trauma have to be careful how they interface with trauma. That was why I stopped running the homeless shelter, because every day somebody is coming that is homeless and it reminds me of being a homeless person. So I think that when we are dealing with people who are victims of trauma, we have to allow them to be comfortable enough to talk about traumatic things that happen to them and have the supportive community to be able to aid their ongoing supports. So, so I try to distance myself from traumatic events that happened to me. Then I got a book deal and it was crazy. because, when you get a book deal, the editor will be like, you have to go back there and touch on those things. And, I finished writing the book last year, so I'm trying to distance myself from some things that I don't want to resurface. So, yeah, trauma is a big deal. It happens in our body and it stays in our body. And sometimes we don't know what triggers those survivor instincts, or it could be as easy as like, right now, my partner is in New York moving our apartment from one place to another, but I'm here. I'm doing it when I'm not in New York physically because changing home is traumatic for me. So it takes time to be able to learn your trigger points and to be able to avoid them. So that was what I was trying to say. So she said one more question and I'm done. Yeah. Sure. You can even take my mic.
This is a two-part, just a quick question. What meaning does your name have? And can you share a special childhood memory that includes family and friends?
My name is Edafe. It means a wealthy man. And my name was given to me by my grandmother because, in my tribe, everybody has a name that follows their belts. Like my elder brother is Obatare, it means destiny, it's the first child. The sister that I'm next to, she's Siweneta, it's like remove my mouth from trouble. Edafe means a wealthy man, and Odafe means being wealthy. So my parents gave me that name because maybe they had a vision that I'm going to be a wealthy person, of which I am. And a childhood memory I remember that I love is between me and my sister Siweneta. I always think about this situation all the time. So one day, my sister and I, so my elder brother is senior to me with 12 years. My other sister, 9.5 years. So this my sister, she's senior to me with 3 years. So we're kind of close. So if my parents leave, they will give us food to eat for lunch, two of us. And the senior shares the meat and give the junior very little fish or meat. So the senior eats the big meat. So we were eating rice and we're going to eat the fish and meat at the end. So we're eating the food, so we wait to the end and eat the meat. So I was targeting my sister. The rice was almost over, then she turned her face sideways, then I grabbed the meat and fish and I run out of the door. And my sister was chasing me. We were running around and running around. It got to a point, I put the meat in my mouth. She was like, I will kill you. She was like, she said I should vomit the meat out of my mouth and she will eat it. As I was running and running, my mom was coming back. So I ran into my mom and ran under the skirt, like the big wrapper. So I ran under. So my mother was like tapping me, like, it's okay, it's okay. My sister was like, okay, like that. So, I was spying, I was just looking at her, I was like, So I think about it all the time that, my sister, they're all married, they have children and everything. And sometimes I just think about them, I'm like, I miss everything about all of them. Because if I do that in America, people will be like, you're not civilized. But it's my culture and it's something I like and I enjoy doing. And yeah, so that's something about a childhood memory I remember. And my name is Edafe, it means a wealthy man. And my middle name is Ovie, it means king. So you're in the presence of kings and queens. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening to my speech. I really appreciate the opportunity to share this message with you. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Have a nice day.